Welcome to the Avengers. I'm Patrick MacNee. I played John Steed in the series. Steed was created solely as a name. Steed stands there, was all it said in the first script. Just that, nothing else. So I had to invent him. It seemed to me that if he was a man helping to rescue people, he was something like, well, the Scarlet Pimpernel. A man who gave the impression of being a fop, somebody extremely well-dressed who was light and amusing, so that nobody would feel he was a threat. You'd say, terribly sorry, old chap, before you hit him.
From Venus with Love was the first episode on the Avengers that I worked on, and the crew weren't used to having a girl doing the doubling, and I arrived early and I walked on the set in full costume and sat down not knowing anybody, and somebody came and asked me for my autograph. And I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, yes, go on. So I signed Cyd Child, and he got rather angry, and 10 minutes later Diana Rigg walked on the set, and he came over and apologised because he thought I was Diana.
When Diana Rigg joined us, I thought, my God, I've got to get to know her. So I took her out to dinner. We were both perfectly outrageous, obviously trying to test each other's limits of what we liked and didn't like. Naturally, everything gravitated to sex. But Diana said she only made exceptions for men of intellect.
I wrote the music for the title sequence, and the pictures were cut to fit the music, as opposed to everything else in all the series where one writes the score, records it and fits it to the film. Then I recorded and fitted all the music, conducted it with the musicians at Elstree Studios.
Emma Peel wears a new, more feminine wardrobe in this series, and she's adapted her fighting technique to match. Fewer karate blows for unwary opponents, she now uses kung fu, a technique that no one had heard of until fight director Ray Austin brought it out on The Avengers. Diana was the first to do it on television.
Working on the Avengers with the stunts was always rather dangerous, but on the motorbike sequence it got slightly worse than usual. The motorbike had to almost hit me, I had to jump out of the way, and it was decided it didn't look close enough, although I thought it was, and we had to redo it, and the director kept saying it's not close enough. So eventually I let the bike hit me, and I said to him, "Is that close enough?" And he didn't say any more.
As previously, the show continued to attract first-class actors in guest roles. Here, Warren Mitchell makes a welcome return as Russian Ambassador Brodny, a character he'd previously played in the monochrome episode Two's a Crowd. Today, Warren is better known, of course, well, for many things, but particularly Alf Garnett in Till Death Us Do Part. Steed and Emma ruffle a few feathers in this one, written by Brian Clemens, the guiding genius behind the series. With the Avengers from its conception, when he wrote his first screenplay, Brian would go on to create The Professionals, The New Avengers, and work on almost every TV series made in the United Kingdom.
Well, with the dive, Peter Elliott did the dive because he was one of the top divers, and he had a wig tied on his head with a piece of string, and it was a superb dive, but he looked too masculine. So they asked me to cover the beginning and the end, and I did the same as him to take off, but unfortunately my dive was rubbish. So I went to the bottom of the pool and stayed there a while and came back up, and the crew were all looking in the water saying, I thought you were dead.
In this series, the physical elegance of Emma's new outfits were echoed by the new Pierre Cardin collection for John Steed. Cardin designed all my clothes for this series and introduced the unique idea of colour matching the bowler and umbrellas to my suits. I like that. We took the physical side of the male-female relationship between Steed and Emma for granted. To have pursued bedroom scenes would have been quite wrong and slowed down the plots. It was all very civilized and mildly ambiguous, which was right for the time and the show.
As you'll have seen, in the fight in the cell, I had to pick the jailer up and whirl him round, and they left my face showing. And when it was transmitted, there was a lot of fuss about, oh, now everyone's going to know that Diana's got a stunt double, and they didn't want this to happen. And as it was, none of the viewers noticed.
The Avengers was the only British TV series to be shown on the American TV network coast to coast at prime time, a record it still holds today. I'm extremely proud of that. Composer Laurie Johnson never repeated his musical scores in The Avengers, firm in the belief that each episode had its own indigenous colour and personality. Laurie treated them as separate features, sometimes composing as much as 40 minutes of new music for each show. In a comic strip way, we happened to mirror the times, and in some cases even anticipate what was coming. Here, Emma and Steed meet doppelgangers, computer-controlled clones. This, 3 decades before the scientists rather sheepishly cloned Dolly and Dolly.
In the fight with Christopher Lee, things didn't go according to plan, and I landed very heavily and bruised my back. So things were changed slightly, and Diana covered for me, and she did it. But the suggestion was, from Diana and Patrick, that I should have a mustard bath to recover.
Epic is Brian Clemens at his very best. In true Avengers style, it allowed him to poke fun at the movie industry and send up such stereotype sequences as gunfights, historical dramas, horror movies, and the whole crazy movie business.